Welcome to the Christina in the Valley podcast, the podcast where we delve into the stories of the remarkable women shaping the world around us. I'm your host, Christina Gavin, and today we have a truly inspiring guest with us who happens to be one of my good friends and the reason this podcast even exists. Joining us is the incredible Bri Cooper, a trailblazer in her own right. Bri took the leap into entrepreneurship during unprecedented times, establishing a creative agency that not only thrived, but survived. Today, we'll uncover the challenges, triumphs, and the invaluable insights she gained along the way. But our conversation goes way beyond the business realm. We'll explore the complex dynamics of women supporting women, or sometimes the lack thereof. Why is there a pervasive need for tearing each other down, and how can we reshape this narrative? Bri opens up about her experiences and perspectives on fostering a community of empowerment. Get ready for a candid conversation that goes beyond the surface. This is Christina in the Valley, where authenticity meets empowerment. Join me, Christina Gavin, and the incredible Bri Cooper as we explore the stories that shape us in this valley we call life. As always, if you love our chat, please be sure to like and follow so you never miss an episode. The best way to support this podcast is to share with your friends and family. You can find Bri on Instagram and TikTok at Moxie Gal Marketing, which will be linked in the show notes. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Christina in the Valley for some exclusive and behind-the-scenes content. Let's get into it. Welcome, Bri, to the Christina in the Valley podcast. I am so excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so pumped.
A lot of people don't know this, but you are a pivotal point in time of how this podcast even got started. I came to you and I was like, oh, I think I want to start this podcast. And you're like, oh, you should probably start building community. And then I did. And now we're here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be a part of this in any way. I remember when we talked and I was like, you just got to do it. Like, rip the Band-Aid off. Don't be scared. Just jump in and do it.
I was so scared. I'm still scared every day.
It's okay. It's like you have to just do it scared. And we're all scared. We all don't know what we're doing.
No, I don't think anybody knows what they're doing, but I do know that fake it till you make it is like the most realist piece of advice I've ever been given.
My brother said the sooner you realize that we're all just actors on a stage, the more successful you'll be.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So I want to get into your whole journey, your experience, what it has been like to be you. And I thought we could start with where you went to college, what you majored in, and kind of what you thought you would be doing.
So I grew up in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, born and raised in Saratoga, Los Gatos area. And I have two siblings. I'm an identical twin sister, which I think is important to note because it really shapes a big part of my identity. And like everybody around us is in tech. Like obviously we're talking to people that are all in tech too. I grew up in that environment. People who aren't from here don't understand like the heavy pressure cooker environment that the Bay Area like kind of breeds. I think that there was this pressure put on us to really figure out what we wanted to do really early on. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea. And I kind of found myself like in private school, people were like, I'm going to be a doctor. And they're like, great, well, I don't know what I want to do. And so I kind of developed this skill, I think, of trying everything and seeing what stuck. Because I didn't want to ever be in a position where I felt like, oh, well, I wish I tried that. I wish I did that and saw what it was. My very first college I went to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandise, my first semester of college. I was like a big fan of fashion like my whole life. I was like on Nordstrom fashion board like when I was in high school. And my mom was a buyer for Nordstrom at one point in the 80s and worked with like a really high up regional managers. And she was like an executive assistant for the Nordstroms. And so it was kind of ingrained in me. I went to FINM for a semester and I was like, nah, because I wanted to do fashion marketing. I was like, nah, this isn't really for me. So I transferred to a really small school called Biola. Everyone always thinks it's Loyola, but it's Biola. It's a very small Christian school, similar to Azusa Pacific in Orange County. And I majored in psychology at first because I was like, I want to be a therapist. That's what I want to do. And then I was starting classes and I was like, I don't think I could separate this. I don't think I could go home and not feel like the emotions on what my clients are telling me every day. And so I transferred majors and I picked PR. I remember when I was driving back to college from Thanksgiving, and Ryan, my husband now, was with me in the car. We were going over different majors because I was like a junior in college and I had not picked a major yet. He was like, what about public relations? And I looked into it and I was like, this sounds exactly like things I'd be interested in. It's like media training and how people portray each other and how you portray your business and just kind of like the front facing side of an industry and what that means for your business and how to maintain mutually beneficial relationships with your publics or your customers. And so I was really interested in that. And so I majored in that. It was the best decision ever because I loved my major, and then graduated. But I think college and maybe early adult life kind of taught me just like to try everything and to see what sticks, because I think that some people get into especially in the Bay Area, some people get into this like corner where they feel like they have to choose, and then they find themselves in a career they hate down the road. So I'm really happy that I just was able to like figure it out.
Ever since I was a little kid, I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm, health Christina, going to be a doctor, going to be a physical therapist, go into sports medicine, something. And then did I do that? No, I got to Chem 11 and took Chem 11 4 times, couldn't pass it. And I was like, this is not the journey for me. This is
I love
probably
that.
a sign from God. I did like the typical basic girl, oh, I'm going to do comms and psychology or psych and sociology, because I knew a ton of people who were doing that. And then finally, my dad was like, Christina, you're going to major in economics. I've known you were going to major in economics for years. Just do it. And I tried
Oh my
economics. I ended
God.
up being so good at it and I love it. And I tutored economics in college. I tutored it after college. And it's just funny how you find the thing that you are meant to do and you're like, yes, this feels good.
Yes, yes. I feel like oftentimes I can tell when people are in an industry, obviously they don't want to be in because they're just so not passionate or fired up about it. And I think that it's so important to be, because life is so short and it's so much better to be at a job that you love or in an industry you love than to be at somewhere you just like are doing to get money.
And I hear that a lot on this podcast is people are in jobs, and I think everybody does a job or is in a position that they don't like at least once in their lifetime, whether it's you're in a career that you don't think is right for you, you're in a specific position that you don't think is right for you. But I remember talking to my mom and she said, you have to go through those things because that's how you figure out what you want to do.
It's so important to figure out what you want to do by process of elimination. Because I mean, but there's some people that are like my husband and knew he wanted to be what he wanted to be for a while. And so like even like his mom was telling me like when we were in high school that he was going to be a lawyer, and he
Yeah.
actually went to like be a pastor first. So the reason why he went to Biola first, and I like basically followed him, and it worked out for me. Wouldn't recommend, but it worked. It just so happened it worked out for me. But he went there because Biola is a Bible school. It's a Christian
Hmm.
school, and they have like one of the best theology programs in the country. And so he went to become a pastor, and then he took Greek, which like at Biola, if you're a theology student, you have to take like ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew to like read the text of the Bible. And so he took Greek, and he was like, "Yeah, no, can't do it. Goodbye."
Nah,
And
bruh.
then but I think he just realized that what he actually really wanted was to think about things really critically. Like he
Mm.
loved theology because of the process of thinking about like bigger picture philosophies, not so much like wanting to be a pastor. He just changed that to political science and law, then just was able to kind of pivot his skill set to that.
Another one of those, once you find what you wanna do, it's
Yeah.
great from there, but getting there is hard.
Yeah, totally. Process of elimination. I think it's the best way to go in your 20s. Like your 20s are for that.
It's not for knowing what you wanna do, it's for figuring out what you wanna do.
Like
After you got through college, what was your next step?
I feel like whenever I tell this story, people are like, "This girl is literally insane." So my now husband, boyfriend at the time, fiance at the time, we were high school sweethearts. So we went from like high school to college together, and we got engaged my junior year. So I was 21 when I got engaged, and my husband was 20. My parents said, "Yeah, good idea." Great, we approve. And we were dating for 5 years at the time we got engaged. So, and then 6 when we got married. So it was like we were together for a while. So we literally graduated from college, we got married, And then we moved across the country to Chicago because my husband was starting law school at U Chicago. And so we had never been to Chicago before. I couldn't even tell you where Chicago was on a map like years prior. I would never be able to tell you that. We went there and it was a very like crazy couple years. But it was well worth it. I feel like we learned about each other and about ourselves a lot. We grew a lot. At the time, the first year and a half I was there, I was actually working for an agency that was based in the Silicon Valley called Mod Fox Consulting. At first, they were like really focused on women. It was called Blue Fox Consulting. And they were really focused on like women startups and doing marketing for them, marketing, website, and branding development for them. So essentially very similar to what I'm doing now. I left because of at the time, there's so many lessons I learned in that situation, but I left it at the end of the day just because it wasn't a good fit, and they were pivoting to more go towards just startups and not women. And I'm very passionate about helping women. And I just didn't feel like our missions aligned anymore, and so I was like, I'm going to stop this. I got the crazy idea to start my own company at 25. I literally was like, I'm going to leave. I'm the only person that's making an income in this family with my husband and I because he's in law school. And I said, so honey, I want to quit my job and start my own company. And my husband was like super, super supportive and was like, yep, I believe when you do it.
We love a supportive husband. There is that TikTok sound that's going around right now that it's like, if a man can do it, I can do it. And
No,
I
it's
just feel, go
yeah,
ahead.
at first I said,
Yeah,
how hard could it be? A boy can do it or a man can do it. And then I said, how hard could it be? A man can do it.
a man, exactly. And that's how I feel like, yeah, I'm 25. I have this idea for a company. No one in my family's making any income. So why not just bet on myself and see what happens? And it clearly has turned out pretty well for you.
I had nothing to lose at that point. Like
That's
we were
true.
already living in the south side of Chicago, $200 a week in our budget. That included everything. Like I was already at a place where I felt like the only way I could go is up. And I also come from a place of immense privilege and know that at any point my parents or his parents could rescue us. Like we're never going to be on the street. I think it's a very important thing to talk about with women who are starting businesses is that I'm a white woman and I come from a place of immense privilege and my parents have money and his parents have money and I was never going to fail. I was never going to like be homeless on the street. And I think that's something that I always recognize because I think a lot of people, obviously in different circumstances, obviously have a harder time taking the jump.
Yeah, it's really hard, I think, for a lot of people to talk about their privilege. I am a white woman as well, and I definitely came from a very privileged upbringing, and it allows me the luxury to do this podcast and work. But I know that if anything were to really happen, I would have something to fall back on. And so many women, people do not have that luxury. So I always like to acknowledge that as well.
Yeah, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I can talk about to the end of the day about how like I took a risk, but I'm like, did I really take that big of a risk? Because I would have been okay, you know?
So you started your company. Talk to me about why you named it what you did.
So I started my company in October 2019. So if you're doing the math, it's like a couple months before COVID. Okay. Like had truly no idea that COVID is on the horizon. The whole world's about to shut down. I started my company in October and I was thinking through kind of what I wanted to name it or what I wanted to do with it. I knew I wanted to support women. I knew I wanted to help them. So I used to be a part of this collaborative workspace in Chicago and there was a couple all over the country. They're since not existent anymore, but it was called The Wing.
Mhm.
And it was owned by WeWork and it was a collaborative workspace for women. They used to have all these different talks. And there was one company that came out to Chicago called Angel Pipeline. They're an amazing VC company that specifically helps women of color get VC funding or VC backing for their startup. And I remember they were giving us all these statistics. They were saying like less than 2% of all women run businesses receive VC funding. And less than 0.5% of all women of color receive VC funding. And it's because they're not given any resources to get them to the next level. And they gave us like this whole kind of outlook on what it looks like to be a woman run business and how there's not as many opportunities for them to thrive. And I felt so called in that moment to fix that. Moxie is a force of determination or nerve. I decided Moxie Gal because I'm not the Moxie Gal. I'm helping every single one of my clients is a Moxie Gal. And so, or a Moxie guy, but most of the time they're a Moxie gal. To have your own company, you have to have a force of determination or nerve to even do this. I think a lot of people don't recognize how vulnerable it is to start your own company. We were talking about that before, like in the beginning of the podcast. Like, it's scary. Do it scared. It's so scary to put yourself out there and say, I think I'm good enough to get paid for this, but I don't know. Someone's going to tell me yes or no, and I'm going to have to take that as an answer. That vulnerability, I always want business owners to tap into. So all of my clients have an incredible amount of Moxie, and that's why I named it that.
There is so much anxiety in I'm good enough for this. I should get paid for it. Like, that's something you and I talk about a lot. I go through that with photography, getting over the hump of I can actually get paid for this. This is a skill. This is something, the hobby to business pipeline for me. I'm like, I could get paid for anything, but that's just
Yeah.
not the case.
Yeah, I think that a lot of women have a hard time putting a value on their value. It's not uncommon. I mean, the amount of times I tell women to increase their prices is almost every single time I jump on a call with them. And I think it has to do a lot with how we're seen as women as a whole, how we view each other, and how men and society view us too. I think it's interesting the vocabulary that's around women run businesses, like girl boss. It's not a boss, you're a girl boss.
You're a girl
uh,
boss. Yeah.
yes, and I think that has an impact on the way that women view themselves and view their work. And I always tell women when they're about to go into a meeting or about to increase their prices, I always say, what would a cocky white guy do? What would a cocky white guy do? Because there are cocky white guy photographers out there, wedding photographers out there who are charging $10,000 and you're charging three, and you're better than him. So why are you not taking up that space? And all that to say, I think we were talking about this earlier. I think
Yep.
that some men have an incredible amount of audacity, and there are some men who are grifters, or just people in general who are grifters and will take money. And I've seen it so many times with website developers, like screwing over their clients for money. All that to say, like, if you feel like you want to charge a fair market price for your work, do it, because no one else is going to take up the opportunity for you. As a small business owner, you have to do it. You have to believe in yourself, because no one else is going to believe in you if you don't.
And I think taking up space is so hard for women, especially just because of our societal norms, societal standards. Women didn't really have their own bank accounts. Up until recently,
I know
they couldn't
recently,
vote. Like, I don't even what
like,
was it? Then
bank account was the 70s, right? Or
I was like,
80s?
yeah, what year? I think it was we gotta look it up, 70s or
It's in
80s.
our parents' lifetime.
Yeah, it's definitely in our parents' lifetime, and not having your own money or this constant idea of you're a woman, you stay at home, you cook, you care for children. Well, what if that's not my path? What if I don't
Or
want kids?
what if I want to do both?
What if I want to work, have kids, run a business, and be married? And now those options are available. And yet, when you look at the VC funding or female CEOs, there's always the man. And I think men are just more confident because that's a societal norm. But I look at these men who have founded companies, startups, very, very successful businesses. And it's just like they did it because they thought they could. But when you tell a woman, just do it, you can do it. They're like, oh, well, what about this? And what about this? And oh, I have to take all these things into consideration where men are just confident and they go for it. And I think women really need to adapt to that more.
Yeah, I always tell women that there are people out there that are doing what you want to do who are worse than you. But the only reason why they're doing it is because they believe in themselves. Sometimes I look at like CEOs, or I meet like my parents' friends who are like high up VPs or presidents or CEOs or whatever. And I'm like, like, interesting. Like the way that some people handle themselves who are in those C-suite positions. Okay, I can do this. And I remember actually my dad hiked Yosemite a couple of like years and years ago when he was in his 20s. And he was like climbing the mountain and he was like, oh my God, I can't make it. I can't make it. And then he saw these like little teen girls that were like in short shorts and like, oh, and he was like, I can do this. And he was like, if somebody that's a child can do this, I can do this. Like, it just, I think we always compare ourselves. I think we're always going to have that knack of doing that. But there are going to be people that you meet along the way who are way less qualified than you that are taking up that space. And the only reason why they're doing it and you're not is because they believe in themselves to do it.
Mhm. Ain't that the truth? Snaps for that. Was there ever a time in your business where you felt like you experienced true failure or you realized this is just not going to work out for me? I need to pivot. I need to adapt. I need to make a change.
Yes. I think when I was 25 or 24, 20, in my young 20s, I had this incredible fear of failure. I had truly never failed. Like truly, truly, truly would never. I'm a Virgo. Okay. So perfectionist at heart.
Important.
Important to know. And I would never allow myself the opportunity to fail ever. Like school, like even when I transferred from FITM to Biola, I transferred within a semester because I was like, going home is failing. I'm not going to fail. Like I literally would never let myself fail because I was so scared of it. And what they don't tell you about is when you start your own company, you fail all the time. You
All the
fail
time.
so, 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 so much. And I kind of learned this mindset that helped me with failure, which is I know what I know. I know what I don't know. And I don't know what I don't know. Like there are going to be things that I come across in life that I fail at, but I truly did not know that I did not know that, and you're just going to have to give yourself grace in that. But when I first started my company, so I started October 2019, and it was like kind of slow in the beginning. I had a couple clients. I was kind of finding myself in this wedge of the wedding industry. And I think it's because there's a lot of women-run businesses in the wedding industry, and that just kind of found myself there. COVID happened March 2020. We're in Chicago, and we're living in a 600 square foot apartment in the middle of winter. The whole world shuts down. I turned to my husband, and we're fleeing Chicago at this point because I was like, "There's no way in heck I am going to stay in an apartment building, and like I can't do this." So we like are driving across country, and I remember I turned to my husband. We got on the interstate, and I turned to my husband and I said, there's no way my business is going to make it through this. There's no way. Because all of my clients don't have clients anymore. Like, there's just no way. And so in that moment, I felt like, all right, well, I gave it my run. I literally started Moxie Gal Marketing though, because I was like, I'm at the bottom. Where else could I go? I started it truly with the idea that I was probably going to fail. Well, like I'll fail in like a year and then I'll like figure something else out. If you had told me in that moment that I was going to make it to where I'm at, like almost 5 years later, I literally would not have believed you. So I decided to pivot and really speak into what to do in that situation, like how to reach clients and how to make money even when you're not doing the main service that you provide. I decided to talk about it on Instagram Live and help all of my clients. I was doing this, I was consulting with them for free. People were calling me, like going cross country and like, what do I do? Da, da, da. I was like thinking about things. We're like literally in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the United States. And I was like calling clients of clients, and I was calling different business owners who wanted my help. And I was just talking to them about some ideas. And I really spoke into that moment, and it completely boomed. When COVID first started, I maybe had 4 clients. I think end of March 2020, I probably had like 16. I had so many people that were like, I need an online presence, and I need a good brand, and I need to keep myself moving, and I need to keep my business sustainable because I don't want to fail. And I don't want this to go under just because I'm not doing weddings right now.
What were some of the offerings you had at that point?
I was doing very similar stuff to what we're doing now. So I was doing branding, website development, and then marketing strategy, which is social media strategy, digital ad strategy, SEO strategy. That's pretty much what I was doing, and that was the same thing I'm doing now. So yeah, but the main thing I was doing in that moment was probably social and branding, because people needed a really good brand and they needed a really good social presence to stay relevant during the early days of 2020.
What was the moment when you realized, oh, I actually have a successful business now? I made it through this.
I still don't recognize that. I'm kidding. I think parts of me will never say that. I think it was like April or May of 2020. I was like, we were living with my in-laws, and I was at my desk and I was working away. My husband was studying for the bar, and no, he was finishing law school at the time. He had not graduated yet. He was finishing law school, and he like walked into my office, and he told me how much money I had made that month. And at that point before that, I was making like $3,000 a month. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, I'm killing it. And I think at that point I got into like the $10,000 or $12,000 month by myself. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't even realize like what I was doing, or and that's when the imposter syndrome kicks in, because you're like, I'm not doing that much. I'm just trying to help in any way I can. and people are paying me for it. This is so great. And I was working so hard. And those months like fluctuate all the time, where there's some months where I don't make hardly anything. There's some months where I make a lot. In those beginning phases, I had to constantly remind myself that my business wasn't failing and that I was just like having a slow month. I think it took like the first 2 years for me to recognize that. Now, when we have a slow month, I don't think my business is failing. I just think that we had a slow month. But yeah, I think it was like maybe early 2-3 months after like the initial COVID shock wave. I can't believe I'm like making it. Like what? Like this isn't just a hobby. Like this is just like actually my career, and I'm like 25 and I just started this. I think it honestly, I think there's some times where I think I still don't think I've made it, you know, or imposter syndrome kicks in all the time.
I always think that there's going to be this point in time where you think, I made it, I reached success, I did it. But then I think you get to that, like, I don't know, let's say it's 1,000 YouTube subscribers or 10,000 downloads for your template or something. And then you get there
Yeah.
and you're like, no, 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 no.
You're like,
This
no, it
isn't
didn't
making
happen.
it. This isn't real. This is a simulation.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Sometimes when I look back at our numbers, I'm like, that didn't happen. I'm dreaming this, or this didn't, because the path to get there is so much more rewarding than the outcome of getting there. The path to achieving your first goal as a business is so much more exciting than actually achieving it. I often wish that I could start all over again. Like I often wish that I was in my first year of business, because your first year of business is the most exciting time you will ever have in your entirety of your business lifespan, because nothing beats the, oh my god, I just convinced someone to pay me. Like what? Like I don't have a company behind me, I'm the company, and someone just paid me. Like just truly nothing beats that beginning path. That's why I love working with, we call it newish female founders, because new female founders are the best people to work with, because they're so passionate about what they're doing. They haven't been burned yet, and so you can kind of like really teach them to stand on their own and empower them to really own who they are.
Nothing beats trying to figure out how to file taxes as a small business for the first time. Like, I know that I'm gonna have to go through that sometime in the very near future, and I called my dad and I was like, "Dad, how do I set up an LLC? Like, what do I need to do to if I have to file my taxes for my business, I don't know how to freaking do that."
The best thing you can do is hire an accountant to do that
Oh,
for
for
you.
sure.
My husband happens to be a corporate attorney, so all of our contracts he does, which is so exciting for us.
So
It's
incredible.
very, he has a legal at Moxie Gal Marketing email. So whenever someone threatens to sue me, I'm like CC legal. I mean, it's only happened like once or twice, but like CC legal, like I can't talk to you anymore. You try, like it is really nice to have that, because I think a lot of the times, and we should get into this, because I think a lot of the times people will try to start a fight with you or try to threaten to sue you. Happens to I get so many calls from my clients like, someone just threatened to sue me, and I'm like, people can sue anyone for anything, okay? Like it happens. You're a small business owner. Congratulations. It's gonna happen at least once in your entirety of your career. Yeah, it's really important to have like good contracts in place for that when that happens. So I would highly recommend anybody to get on whose husband is not an attorney,
See,
to get on LegalZoom. It's a really great resource full of lawyers that are doing this for a discounted price pro bono. But definitely recommend an accountant for all the taxi things.
yeah, those are important things. And I thought, when because I did photography a lot through the pandemic, and I was specifically I worked at the winery, I worked with some other things, and I was like, "Oh, working with women is gonna be easier than trying to work with couples directly or working with restaurants." Like, I'm a woman, I get women, it should be fine. And then I just had such a different experience working with women than working with men, and it's even something I've seen in my corporate job, and we might get a lot of hate for this, but women tear each other down more than men do, and I was wondering if you've experienced that in your business.
Yeah. So we are a female-run company that works specifically with women. So it's happened a lot. At the beginning of my business, I remember thinking, what is standing in women's way? What is doing that? What is standing in women's way to achieving all they want to do? And I said, it's men. It has to be men. It has to be men. And then I went through my business and I've encountered the most ruthless bullying. I've gotten sued. I've been like blasted online for no reason. And I said to myself, it's other women. And that's so hard. And I often get emotional about it because I really truly wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why movies like Mean Girls is popular is because there's a lot of women that could relate to it. And it's funny and we poke fun at it, but it's true. And that's what makes it funny. And that's been honestly, the most devastating thing. And I fully acknowledge that the reason why this is probably happening is because of this patriarchal society that we find ourselves in today. And there's truly nothing that you could accomplish by tearing down another woman. Truly nothing in any aspect of your life. What it does is discredit other women. It doesn't help the system that we find ourselves in at all. I remember talking to my stepmom about this, who owned her own marketing company when I was growing up. And she's a big reason why I started my marketing company, because I saw it happen. And, I saw her do it. So I remember talking to her because it said just a situation that just happened to me where somebody was writing a review on one of my clients' reviews and was literally tearing me apart, like personally, like personal stuff, like just calling me all these names. I remember talking to my stepmom about it, and she goes, do these people know that they actually have businesses? This is another business talking to another business, talking to about another business. This is not professional. This is not helping you. This is not helping other businesses. This is not helping women. When are you going to sit back and say, I have an actual business and I should probably start acting like that? I think because this is such a vulnerable thing for people to do, the main thing we do is tear down people when we're feeling insecure. It's honestly been one of the most devastating outcomes of me starting Moxie Gal.
Yeah.
And my hope and I guess my mission for staying is to change it. Because I remember talking to my business partner now about it, and she goes, Bri, if we leave, it's never going to change. Like, if companies like us continue to leave the space because the space sucks, it's not going to change. We're staying here, hunkering down, and we just have to be a little bit more direct and strict with certain things. And that sucks that I can't be super open as I want to be. But I even get the stupidest comments, even when it comes in the branding process, where people will say, this color palette actually looks a lot like this other color palette you did. And I don't feel comfortable like having a similar color palette. And I was like, well, your style is editorial. There's only so many colors that can come in that. And you want neutral editorial. So you're going to have a black and you're going to have a beige. It's going to be a different black and beige than so-and-so's company, but you're going to have a black and a beige. And there's nothing I can do about that. But this like competition and this like idea that we have to compare color palettes because if it's similar, then what? People are going to choose her than you. Like it's just very interesting. And so people will give you backhanded compliments up the wazoo. Like it has been, again, I will say this, it's been very devastating to see, but we're sticking in it because we want to change it.
What I don't understand is it should be a rising tide lifts all boats. That's kinda how
Mm-hmm.
I grew up. That's what my parents instilled in me. You always help others. If they're, you try to bring them up to where you are, and then you lift them up higher if possible. I've experienced it in my own corporate career where mentors have said, "Look, I had to go through this to get here, so you have to go through it." And not in a, "I'm gonna help support you, but you gotta do the work, and I'm not gonna make it any easier for you," which is just not the philosophy I believe in, because I think there's room for everybody to be successful in their own right, whatever success means to them.
I do have a theory about that.
Ooh,
I,
what's your theory?
I've thought about this from a lot of different perspectives, but specifically with women, I think when people have negative experiences and they hold those negative experiences so tightly because it was such a hardship and it was something that was so hard for them to overcome that they white knuckle it so tightly because it's a huge part of their identity. And if someone comes around and doesn't experience that, then this white knuckling was for what? And I think that oftentimes people who have been in that position where they're white knuckling feel like if they just let it go, then they're losing a part of who they are. And that's just not true.
Yeah, that's powerful.
You can still be who you are and go through that. but also wish for women after you not to go through that. And that should be the thing you're white knuckling.
It should be, but there's a lot of inherent trauma, I'm sure. A lot of
Yeah.
looking into your inner child, doing inner child work
Oh, yes.
to get there.
Yeah, the only reason why I had that theory is because I've been in therapy for like 7 years, and I'm pretty self-aware, and I like think about these things because I'm like, why, why is that like that? A lot of people from different perspectives feel that way. If they went through a hardship and somebody exactly like them in their position didn't go through it later on, then what they did was for nothing.
I hate being so self-aware, honestly. Like, so many years of therapy, and sometimes I'm like, "Ugh, do I need to have these thoughts? I don't love them." I hate knowing why I feel this way.
How much I'm just gonna be blissfully ignorant just for like 5 seconds?
No, I don't think my life would be better, but I would definitely be a lot calmer as an
Just
individual.
living in delusion, like what I want to do.
I am in my Delulu era, though, so I have entered that realm,
I
but
love
that's
that for
okay.
you.
That's, you gotta be
I love it for
Delulu
you.
sometimes. All right, so we'll switch gears from lifting women up instead of tearing them down. I think I'll just end on everybody has a seat at the table. It is our responsibility to bring a chair or to make room if someone does not have a seat at the table, and we should really be looking out for each other.
Amen. I always say pull up a chair, get to know the women that are sitting next to you, cheer them on, and let's go. Focus on yourself, focus on your own business, cheer on the other women next to you that may have a similar business to you, and let's go. There's enough seats.
Speaking of enough seats, I'm hoping and praying you're going to scale your business. We're going to see what the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan is. I just want to know, like, what's next for you? What are you working on? What's kind of lighting your fire right now? What are you getting excited for?
Yeah. So we just did this exercise with Aaron's husband in November where it was basically like this big like casted vision for like the lifespan of Moxie Gal and where we see it in the next couple of years and what we want to see happen. Our big vision like for the entirety of Moxie Gal is to see 5,000 successful female run businesses that have been impacted by something that they've gotten from us, whether it's a service or a product, consulting, or eventually down the road would love to be investing in women-run businesses. So that's like a big goal of ours is to start investing in women-led startups, specifically women of color, specifically in the Bay Area. And that'd be really cool. So that's like down the road. Right now, we're working on expanding our shop. So like our shop launched in June. We just were like, let's get it out there because it's like been a goal of ours. But like I was dealing with some stuff. Erin was pregnant. We're like, let's just get it out there before Erin has a baby, okay? But we really want to start expanding on our shop. So we're offering Squarespace templates coming up. We're offering fonts coming up and going to continue building website templates for Show It and social media templates, icons, all the things you need. That's coming up in the pipeline. And then we're just continuing serving our clients. We have kind of found ourselves in this kind of new niche of travel agents, which I did not understand the whole world of travel agencies now, because when you think of travel agencies, you think, okay, it's a shop at a strip mall. Like that's what it is. But there's like so many women in this space right now. There's so many women-owned companies in this space right now. So we've kind of gotten a lot of those, and I'm very excited to expand upon on that niche. Still serving women in the wedding industry. But yeah, that's kind of like coming down the pipeline for us.
There's so many exciting things coming. I should announce that for listeners of this podcast, Moxie Gal is offering a free design template. You'll be able to find the link to download that in the show notes. I highly recommend it. I have worked with Bri a lot. She's incredible. Moxie Gal is incredible. So if you're a small female run business, you're newish and you need some branding, maybe a little updated website, some font packages, you can always find that at Moxie Gal.
MoxieGalMarketing.com or Moxie Gal Marketing on Instagram.
So let's move into some fun questions before we close us out.
Yay.
Since you're kind of a branding company, you like branding, I thought this would be interesting. So if you could rebrand any company or like any personal brand, who would you rebrand and why?
Okay, I thought about this for a while. I would love to do an album era for Taylor Swift.
Shut up.
Like, wouldn't that be
That's
so
amazing.
fun? I was like, what would I want to rebrand? I'm like, I wouldn't want to rebrand her, but I would like all the branding that goes into like Reputation or Lover or Midnights. Like, I would love to do something like that. Like, that would be a dream.
whoever she uses for her marketing, I think she's a genius. No Taylor slander here, please,
Yeah,
because
please.
she's
Shh.
a lyrical genius. She's just a genius in
Shh.
her own right. But the
Yep.
marketing, the Easter eggs, every single detail is like so thoughtfully planned and put together.
Yeah.
I just
That's what I
one
think would
day
be
aspire to
fun.
have my life like that.
That would be so fun to work on that. So she has her own like creative agency, like and management team called 13 Management, and like she has an agency within that that does
Mhm.
all of her branding and marketing and stuff. But still would love nonetheless to do something like that. Like just even when I think of like reputation, like it's like the merch, the album color, the cover, the
Yeah.
posters, the vibe, the tour, like everything is going into like a specific look and you're building off of that. And that would be so fun.
Our last question, I always end every episode with this because I think it's so important for younger women, for reflection, for everything. What is one piece of advice you would give your 20-year-old self from where you are today?
So I was thinking about this a lot, and we kind of brought this in to our conversation. But I think that I would give my 20-year-old self the permission to fail because I was so scared of it for so long that I think I held myself back from opportunities and putting myself out there because I was just so scared of failing. And your 20s are for failing, and I wish someone told me that. I wish someone told me, so starting at 20 years old until you're 30, you are going to fail so many times, but that's what this season is for. And you're never going to have it again in your life. So take advantage of it and just put yourself out there and fail, because it's not about how you fail, it's about how you get yourself back up. And so I wish someone could just give me permission to do that.
I love that. Fail fast and fail often. I'm a big proponent of failure because I believe that it jumpstarts you, pushes you to where you're actually supposed to be, and rejection is redirection, as we say.
Yes, I love that. I know it's like the founder of Spanx. She said her dad would go around the table and ask them every night what they failed at that day. She said what it gave her was the opportunity to put herself out there because she never wanted to not tell her dad at the dinner table something she didn't fail at. Like, so she would always like try out for things or do something that day in school because like she wanted to fail at something.
Well, and that's how she has. It's not. Is it a billion-dollar company?
I wanted to say I thought it was like 800 million. So yeah, I was
It's
close.
definitely close.
Yeah. Yeah, so fail fast, fail often. That's how you walk out of here with $800 million.
Exactly. Well, Bri, thank you so much for coming on the Christina in the Valley podcast. You can find Bri at Moxie Gal Marketing, and she's always looking for new clients if anybody is interested.
Thank you so much for having me.
As always, if you love our chat, please be sure to like and follow so you never miss an episode. The best way to support this podcast is to share with your friends and family. You can find Bri on Instagram and TikTok at Moxie Gal Marketing, which will be linked in the show notes. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Christina in the Valley for some exclusive and behind the scenes content.